Welcome to The Profitable Web Designer, a podcast for web designers who want to work less and make more money. I'm your host, Shannon Mattern, founder of the Web Designer Academy, where we've helped hundreds of web designers stop undercharging, overworking, and create profitable, sustainable web design businesses. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Profitable Web Designer podcast. Today, I am joined by Stephanie Hayes, owner of Fully Booked VA and the head coach for the Fully Booked VA community and coaching members. And Stephanie has been building successful businesses and guiding entrepreneurs as a high-level business coach and consultant for over 20 years. So when it comes to creating a thriving, sustainable business, she knows her stuff. So Stephanie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so great to chat.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you here, not only just because there's so much overlap between the world of VAs and tech VAs and web designers, like especially when it comes to like getting booked out and pricing and setting boundaries and all of those things. And also like the lines for web designers often get blurred for like things that they're doing in their business, like consulting, freelancing, and high-level strategy stuff. So I'm excited to like dig into all of that with you today. But before we get into all of that, Stephanie, I would just love to start off by hearing just about your business journey, like over the past 20 years and like what led you to the head coach and CEO of Fully Booked VA. What's your origin story?
I thought we only had an hour.
Yeah, exactly, right?
So I am a dyed-in-the-wool entrepreneur, and I have been around doing this for a very long time. I started out my career, I did a degree in communication and new media, and ended up working in the software world, in the software startup, in the research park at the university, and then moved along into sort of the .com world and then into technology consulting, and eventually ended up starting up my own consulting business with a partner, grew that to a few $1 million in revenue. And then I started a software startup myself, and that's still going to this day, 14 years later. And then along the way, I was kind of like an independent consultant and kind of bouncing around here and there. And then what I really got interested in was the lean startup and the startup world, and ended up having a lot of friends and like referrals who were asking me to help them with their business model. And that's where I kind of fell into business model design. And that's really like, I'm a business architect by trade. I consult into large organizations doing organizational design. And with these small business owners, it's business model design. Was an entrepreneur mentor at the university in their entrepreneurship program, and just kind of got steeped in the world of small business and startups. And that's sort of I kind of hung my own shingle and was working as a coach and strategist for small business owners and solo entrepreneurs. I actually have a degree from like after I graduated, I went to the other university and I got an actual diploma in internet marketing in 1998. So I've been in this like internet world for a very, very long time. So whatever corner of the internet world you're in, I have been there and I have done it. I have seen it. Eventually, I just kind of hung my own shingle, and I was working with all of my independent owners and came across Gina Horkey, who used to own the business that I now own. And she was my client, and we worked together on redesigning her business and launched Fully Booked VA back in, I think, 2020, 2019, somewhere around there. And then she went off to have a baby, and I was running the company for a little while, and then we came back together. So a few years later, I had started to get really, really interested in the whole world of buying and renovating and selling businesses. And she had gotten to that sort of point in her life cycle where she was like, I think I'm done. And I said, give it to me. And I bought it 2 years ago. So that's how I became the CEO and owner of Fully Booked VA. I also have another, the other side of my business where I work with small business owners who are looking forward to an eventual exit. And so I spend a lot of time backing out of the exit strategy to figure out how we build a growth model. So got my fingers in a lot of different pies. I do corporate consulting. I own this business. I have the strategy consulting and my software company. So I'm a pretty, I would say serial, but it's kind of parallel entrepreneur.
Everything.
So here we are.
Yeah. Like that journey is fascinating. And everything you do, I'm like, you must not feel like you ever work with like all of those interesting, fascinating things that you do. Like it just sounds so fun.
It is so fun. I'm busy for sure. Like I work a lot. And, a lot of people are saying, oh, you work too much. I'm like, but I really like it. Like, yes, I want some time back for sure. But I get to just, when you work in the startup world, when you work like the .com, I think the .com era was honestly the hugest lesson for me. I was still in my early 20s, mid 20s, but I was incubating businesses. I worked for a big internet technology startup or big internet technologies company, and we were incubating businesses inside that organization. And at like 26 years old, I was responsible for building these businesses. And these were funded. These were like $6 million .com startups. And so I am immersed and dyed in the wool in the internet world. And I've seen it evolve from like 1998 all the way through to today. And honestly, what I'll tell you is that not a lot has changed sort of fundamentally. We just now have more people and like more tools and better advancements and innovations and that sort of thing. But at the heart of it, internet marketing is pretty much the same concepts, just new ways of doing it.
I love that. And I want to dig into that because what I find, so you and I met through Gina Horkey.
Yes.
And Gina and I met, I don't know when, in the late 2010s. So probably 2017, 2018, 2019. I don't know if I cold reached out to her first or she reached out to me, but we saw that at the time we had some overlap in the audiences that we served. At that time, I was teaching web designers and entrepreneurs how to DIY their websites. Her business was called Horkey Handbook at the time, and she was teaching people how to like start their own VA businesses. And I think the Horkey Handbook was like her handbook for how to like run the business. And we thought, oh, there's some natural overlap of our audiences here. Let's partner, let's collaborate. And so I think we were on each other's podcasts. We may have done some like special trainings for each other's audiences. And so I am a passionate advocate of relationship marketing. And so I'm curious because you have, like you said, you've been through the whole era of the late 90s .com. And I was there too. I was in college during that time and getting my first jobs in the early 2000s in marketing. So I've seen that evolution as well. Where do you see the intersection of like actual real relationships with people and quote unquote internet marketing? And how do you see those working together and overlapping?
It's never been anything but relationships. Like
Thank
that is
you.
marketing, right? It's never been anything other than my like number one strategy for marketing is relationship development, is partnership development, is collaboration. One of my most significant partners is my biggest direct competitor. Like we're
Same.
besties. Yeah. And we develop products together. Like, so I would say marketing is all about building relationships, whether you're building relationships face to face or you're building a relationship through email. And when you think about it from that perspective, it changes the content that you create, right? It changes the way that you engage with your audience. It's not just a push out and by email. It's like, how can I actually create a relationship? And I think that's one of the things that our audience says about the emails that we put out. Like we've really pared them down to be like very relationship focused. And people are very loyal to us. Even if they never buy anything from us, they're like, I just like to read your emails because it feels like you know me. Like, so everything about marketing is about creating a relationship. And I don't care what strategy you're talking about, that's what it's about. If it's not going to be very successful.
Yeah. And so a couple of threads there that were really interesting to me, but I want to circle back to what was it about Fully Booked VA that made you say, this is a business like that I want to take over? What was it about that?
I had a relationship, right? So I had worked with Gina to design this business from the ground up, right? She used to just sell courses, and she had come to me and said, I want to do something a little bit bigger and a little bit more engaged. And so we turned it into a membership. We turned it into a coaching platform. And our focus is really, really on building business, right? It is not, people hear about, oh, you have a VA business, so you teach them how to do technical things. No, that's not our business. Our business is teaching you how to build a business. And there, we partner up with all sorts of different partners who can teach them those deeper skills if they want it. But one of the things that I really, really try to instill in our VAs and freelancers and the folks that come into our world is that the first thing they think is, oh, I have to get more skills. And I'm like, no, you don't. You've got skills you can sell right now. And that's just an excuse for them to avoid going and doing like the client getting stuff, because that's the part that scares them. And when we break it down for them and make them realize how simple it can be, and they actually believe it and try it, then they realize that that's not the scary part, and that they actually have skills and they have stuff that they can sell right now. Like, you could go out tomorrow and start selling your services because there's something that you can provide. If you're a grown ass adult, you've got something that you can provide to people that has value. And what they need is that ability to sort of see that and to have someone help them see that. And there's so much of this mindset stuff that goes on. So we have some skills courses that we do give them, but it's more along the lines of like project management or email management. But we're not in the business of creating that kind of stuff anymore. Like, those are legacy and those we've had around for a little while. But we're really, really doubling down on the idea that we're teaching you how to build a business. And then all the other stuff that you want to fill in, if you want to specialize, if you want to get more training, here's our partners. You can go off and you can work with them. And I have a lot of crossover between us and our direct competitor. She does something else. She has a slightly different business and she provides something different. And we'll have a lot of people that are in both those communities. So we're really trying to build that brand that around building a business, not going out and getting a bunch of like certifications or technical skills. And that's just delaying your success, right?
Yeah, I call that procrastinating. Like, it's truly,
I love that.
Yeah, it's truly, web designers do this too. It's like, I'm not ready. I need to know everything there is about everything. And I need to choose my platform and I need to this, that, and the other. And I always say it's like, you're not being paid to already know how to do the thing. You're being paid to figure out how to do the thing and to do the thing for someone else so that they don't have to think about it or figure it out. Like,
Yeah.
It's okay. You don't need to already know this.
Yeah.
Like, so you just have to know that you can figure it out. Like, that's like the biggest, the biggest shift and skill that you can have. Yeah.
Here's the big myth is that a lot of folks will sort of come into our world and say, oh, but I don't have these skills or I don't have the things on my resume that this person is asking for. And I was like, you know what? People will hire you based on who you are. They're always going to hire you based on who you are, not what you had on your resume, not the like laundry list of skills. So apply for everything, right? Just apply for everything. Because when I go to my networking group of business owners, I go to them and I say, what do you look for in someone that you're going to hire to help you? Not a single one of them says, oh, I want them to have all these deep technical skills in this and this and that and blah, blah, blah. No, all the things they're saying are, I want them to be confident. I want them to make me feel like they have things covered. I want them to be a great communicator and have a good sense of humor. And like, it's all the stuff about who you are. So that's what they're going to hire you on. It's about how you make them feel. So we really coach our students to go into those conversations, own those conversations. And that's the number one thing that they're looking for is like, can I put my trust in you to just like take this off my plate and run with it? I don't want someone who's going to come to me asking me every single question about every single thing. And I know you're not going to have all the skills. I know you're not going to know how to do everything right off the bat. I'm fine to teach you things. Like, that's fine for me. But please don't be someone who makes more work for me.
Oh, so good. So good. So we were chatting a little bit before I hit record about some shifts that you're making in terms of how you're structuring the program and your teachings and just how you even think about running this business in general. And we talked about like the difference between freelancing and consulting and things like that. So can you share more about like kind of shifts that you're seeing in the market today and why you've decided to like go in this direction with your programs?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Things are really different now than they were 12 months ago, than they
Yes.
were 24 months ago. Last year was a really, really transitional year for a lot of people who sell what we sell. And part of it was economic, part of it was fear, part of it was like external circumstances. But we can't sell the same thing in the same way to the same people anymore. And so we've seen our demographics shift a lot. And we went from sort of hashtag boss babes and like side hustle, stay at home moms to, which is all totally legitimate. But now we have this really interesting demographic of women, mostly women who are sort of like, I'm turning 50 this year. And so, sort of in that like 35 to 60, like we've got some retirees who are amazing. But all of these women are coming in and they're like, it's almost a swan song for them, right? Like they want to come in and they want to have more meaning. They want to do something. They want to prove to themselves that they can do this. And they're just a really great group to work with because they're not hand wringers, right? Like they come in and they're just like, okay, I'm going to get into this. I'm going to be open to coaching. I'm going to be asking the right questions and I'm going to go build this thing for myself. And it's really refreshing. However, we can't sell in the same way that we did before. And just, I think attitudes have changed to what people buy online now. And it's very hard to continue to get the revenue from just like standalone sales funnels. And yes, I know there's going to be all the bros out there who are like, oh, yeah, it's self liquidating, blah, 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 whatever. Like, do your thing. If you're successful doing that and you want to keep doing it. But what I have noticed by being in those groups is that the conversation is always about the front end of the funnel, always about the ads, always about like how successful. And I keep asking the question, what are you actually delivering on the back end of those? And so that's what means something to me. So it's so important to me is, do we have a really good quality service that we are like killing it with our people? And we spent a lot of time last year building our community and building our offerings so that they were really, really valuable. The coaching is incredible. Like everything is just so beautiful inside the community. We have a very, very loyal members. So now we have to back out of that and figure out, how do we sell that differently? One of the things that I've really noticed is that we have these sort of 3 different groups that land with us. And yes, there's a lot of people who sort of end up in the VA space. And for us, a VA is sort of like, it's not that I'm just doing admin work, but it's more that I'm working remotely and I am helping you build the functioning of your business. But then we didn't really have a container for those people who show up that are a little bit like further along, where they already have a set designers or website developers or copywriters, or someone who has like already sort of established their skill set, but they think the only way to get in is to start as a VA. But there's this like cognitive dissonance between that term because they don't really identify that way, but they still want the education on how to start building this business and being on their own. So that group. And then there's another group. I have fewer of these guys, but I have such a huge network of these guys that I want an offering for them. The people who have been in the working world for a long time, who have these more advanced skill sets and lots of really great experience, but they want to go out on their own as like a consultant. So I want an offering for those guys too, because I work with those people privately, but I really want to shift that business out of that area and really focus on the exits and have a way to serve those same people. Those 3 groups need slightly different things, and they need a different approach, and they need different material and that sort of thing. There's kind of a 4th group too, which are agencies. So I have some VAs that are actually now stepping into, or are by default building an agency because they had to. I have one lady who started in April, and by June, she was fully booked out. And then she started hiring people into her business. I think we started her like at the end of last year because she's just got this golden egg. Like she's just figured out this niche and this relationship with somebody who just basically feeds her new clients. So she's constantly bringing on new clients. So we've been working on how to build out an agency. We do have a course on agencies, but I want to create a container for those folks who are really moving into the agency world because it's very different than doing the service yourself. So that's what we're moving into this year is a full rebrand where we are going to become just fully booked. So we will be befullybooked.com. And then those pathways, people will end up in those pathways based on where they're at. So do they feel they're more at this level where they're going to start out as a VA and they can build up from there and progress? Or are they at a place where they've already got sort of an established skill set and they just want to start doing it freelance as opposed to inside of an organization? Or have they had their time in corporate and they're just really feeling this to be like they're being pulled to go out on their own and use their expert skills and their expertise to become a consultant? So we want to filter them into those three. And there's no reason you can't move from one to the next, right? I do have people in my VA business that I know I could move all the way over. And then the agency offering is going to be something, I don't know if it doesn't really necessarily fit like in that progression, but it fits sort of as a progression from either the freelancers or it could really be from any of them. But it's more about now I'm creating a business around this as opposed to it's just me as a service provider. So you'll see a rebrand, which will be a lot more, I want to say like grown up and a lot more intentional, I think, to serve this audience. And what they're really looking for is that support. And it's funny because, last year was a really rough year financially for everybody. And I was just like, the feedback we kept getting from our audience was, oh, I don't have any money or I can't afford it or what have you. But you could offer them the program for $40 and they still wouldn't take it because it wasn't necessarily a financial thing. It was that there's a belief gap, right? But interestingly enough, instead of offering a cheaper product, we turned around and offered something more expensive. We built a 12-month mentorship program where they're working with me individually and as part of a group. And we're launching an agency this year that is very specific, is not a VA agency. It is a freelancing agency where all of the people in the agency who are providing services have been through this 12-month mentorship program with me, where every month they are getting an education in some specific aspect of online business. So by the time they finish this 12-month program, they've been through 12 months of learning about online business. So the agency is really to support online business owners. But I sold that out in a matter of days. And it was way more expensive than the other programs. But because they felt like someone was going to be there holding their hands and giving them something to work towards, and this possibility of work down the road. Now, the way I've structured it is like, okay, yes, you're going to be learning these things to eventually become part of my team. But the other half of every month is that you have to use what you've learned on your own business. I want you to build your own business. I want you to get supported in building your own business so that you have that too. I'm not going to hire you into my team and you're going to be full time. We teach all of our VAs and our freelancers to have a portfolio of income sources so that we connect them once they get certified. We connect them with a bunch of agencies that they can hire or they can apply to. And we tell them create relationships with agencies, create your own big rock retainer clients. Also, go get some project-based work, fill in the gaps. That's a great way to improve your skills and have a little bit of variability. So that portfolio is very not as risky and also gives them lots of other opportunities to find clients. So that's the goal for this year. That's the vision that we're going to be executing on. And it's going to be a total rebrand for the whole business.
So many good things in everything you said. I really resonated when you said, in these other marketing spaces where everybody's focused on front of funnel and how can we just sell, sell, sell. And there's no discussion of like, but what are we selling? What results are they getting? I think that's why I resonate with you and what you do so much, because it's not about how can I just make the most money possible. It's like, how can I have the biggest impact possible? The money will follow naturally from that. And we experienced like 2023 was like the year that we really experienced like that seismic shift where everybody really like we started hearing that same thing. And I totally agree with you. It was the I can't afford it, but it wasn't I can't afford to spend the money. It's that I can't afford to make this investment and not get results. And I am not confident enough in myself that I can actually make this happen. But what if I don't get clients? But the world feels scary. Like listening to this echo chamber of like, no one has any money right now. Nobody's spent, like this black and white thinking that creates fear in us. And yes, I agree. Like you can't afford to spend your precious time and resources on something that is not going to get you where you want to go. And that's why I'm so glad there are people like you out there, like us out there, who truly care about making sure that you are successful off the back end and will like incubate you and lead you through that process, because there is just a lot of like selling of information out there. And I think what you have noticed and what I've noticed too, because we talked about this at the beginning, anybody can learn a skill from anywhere now. That market is like, that's not where the value is anymore, is like the learning of the skill. The value is in developing the application of the skill in the real world scenarios when you're dealing with real clients and real mindset stuff and all of the things that come up when you put yourself out there and you're dealing with difficult client situations and you're trying to figure out how to price things. Like that's where the real value comes in and working with a program like Fully Booked or us. So yeah, go ahead.
It always surprises me so much when people don't come to the coaching calls and they sign up for the program and they just like don't, because the coaching calls are so incredible, like the transitions that people make and even the ones who just come and listen, like for them to be validated and to not be alone and realize that all the things that they're going through and the questions that they're going through are the questions that everyone else is asking. Yeah. And so like we had someone, I mean, you get all kinds when you're in this business, right? But we had somebody sign up for the program, I don't know, last week or the week before or something. And she signed up, she logged in, she like blasted through the content really quickly and obviously didn't really read it or anything. And then she turned around a few hours later and said, I want my money back because it's not delivered in the way that I want to see it delivered. Like I want videos this way and something else that way. And I'm like, you haven't even stepped into the program. Like, come to the coaching calls. That's where all the value is. If you are truly wondering if this is possible for you, that's what's going to get you through. It's not the course. The course is fine. It has stuff in it, whatever. But it's the conversations. It is the interactions. It is the relationships. People like our community members, like they hire each other or they get on calls with each other all the time. They become friends. Like it's just such a tight, amazing community. And the work that we do in the coaching calls, one of my coaches is a mindset coach. And she and I have grown up together in this world. And she and I have had all the same training and everything. And so I brought her over from our previous experiences. And she's incredible. Like she's amazing. And so sometimes I'll just hand it off to her. I'll say, you take this one but we're both well-versed in the same. So we do a lot of mindset coaching inside of and that is what trips people up. They get inside their head and they say, well, I've got this narrative that I can't do this because of this, or there's some block here, or I'm looking at this, I'm obsessing over my website. I'm obsessing over my LinkedIn profile. I'm like, just stop. Like, just who cares, right? The rest of the world isn't sitting there going, oh, what is she doing? We have to wait for what she's doing so we can judge her. Like, you're lucky if you get anyone's attention, right? So that kind of perspective really helps with these guys. So the ones who are just kind of like going through the course content and then not getting forward, like just please come and get coaching. Like that is such a valuable part of this. Now, having said that, I don't think I ever go to coaching calls for any of the programs I sign up for. But, I'm a bit of a hypocrite in that regard, but maybe a different perspective. But that's just like, that's the value. And that's what I want to make sure is standing out for people, is because we know that there's this belief gap, right?
Yep.
Last year we were a little bit funny. We got a little frustrated because it was a really, really tough part of the year. We weren't getting any sort of engagement or responses from our newsletters. And we've got a big list, right? Like we've got a big list of a lot of people. And we said, let's go break our brand for a second. So we sent this really sort of shitty email out to our list. And we were like, usually we're so supportive and this and inspirational. And we were like, hey, what's your problem? Right? You haven't done anything. You've been sitting on the list for 9 months and 3 years, whatever, but you haven't taken any action. Like, what's wrong? What's going on with you? And it was a bit like edgy, right? Like it was a bit shitty. And I just wanted to see what we would get back. And so we gave them this sort of like 4 questions and we said, so what is it, right? Like, is it, I really want to do this, but I'm not really sure what my next steps are? Is it, I think I want to do this, but I'm not sure if I do? Or is it, I want to do this, but I don't have any money? Or is it, I don't want to do anything with you. I just like your newsletters and to hang out. Or is it like, I just want to unsubscribe. I hate you, right? Fine, like go for it. And so we wanted to see what people would do when we got their attention by being like a little edgy. So it was a really interesting exercise because to a factor of 3, people responded and said, I want to do this, but I can't afford it. And then we had the people who were like, well, I'm interested, but I don't know what the next step is. And I'm interested, but I'm not sure if it's for me. And then the other people just kind of went away. So we said, okay, to the people who said, I can't afford it, and the people who said, I don't know what to do or I don't know what's next, we offered them like a free group coaching call. Like come on the group coaching call, sign up for it, have your questions answered, get coaching. We'll stay on as long as we need to do. And we had like 38 people who signed up for that. And then we also offered to the people who were not sure of their next steps, we said, here's a free 15-minute one-on-one session with me. And I had 18 people sign up for those. Do you know how many people showed up for the group coaching call?
I'm going to guess not that many.
1.
Yeah. I was going to say 0, but yeah.
Yeah. Do you know how many people signed up for the one-on-ones that they signed up for, that they put in my calendar? 0.
How many showed up for them?
0.
Ooh, I don't know. Ooh, okay. I was going to guess 0 again, but I wasn't sure. Yeah. That doesn't surprise me.
I mean, it was annoying, but it was also fascinating, right? Yeah. It was fascinating because these people are like taking the time to answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But then when offered something, they cower. And so that said to me, this is not a money problem.
Right.
What I know about selling in the online world or anywhere is that when someone tells you the problem is money, it's not really, because if someone truly cannot afford something, they don't even engage, right? They just won't. But these folks are reaching out and saying, I can't afford it. But what they're really saying is, I'm not sure if I can afford not to be successful, right? Which is totally true. So, we have to change our messaging around. And then we offered a scholarship program where we offered them everything for 50% off. Plus, they got some one-on-one coaching with me for 6 months. And so they would have to shell out like $500 and they would get 12 months inside the community. They would get access to the full program. They would get all the group coaching. They would get one-on-one sessions with me. Now, my other clients in my other business pay $500 for one session with me. So that was like a great deal. So I had like 32 people apply for that. And all the applications were like, oh, this is so amazing. I really need this and this would help me so much and whatever. And I was like, oh my God, I can't offer this to 32 people because I will never have any time left. We said we were going to offer it to 5. I did. I offered it to 32 people. I said, okay, here you go. You know how many people signed up?
Oh, I'm going to say 5.
3.
Oh, yep.
So it's such an interesting like commentary on human psychology.
Yeah.
Please give this to me. Please give me this option. This will be so good for me. Okay, here you go. No, I can't do it. I'm not going to do it. So that's this belief gap, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we really need to work on. Now, as we start to attract different audiences, that'll change. But that is the number one thing that holds people back, is that they just can't get past the belief gap that they can do this. And all of the work that we do inside, I'll tell you, like 90% of the time, we're talking about getting clients. And we're talking about different ways to get clients. And we're talking about how you can get clients in the coaching call. And what are you doing specifically? And how do you find the strategy that works best for you? And by the way, it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be uncomfortable. It doesn't have to be the same thing. I don't have a network of people. You do, first of all. And secondly, you don't need one. Like, you don't need 500 clients. You need like 3, right? So it's just giving that perspective that really changes people when they've finally taken the step forward to say, okay, I'm going to take a bet here and I'm going to try. And our offers or our promos are pretty good. Like, you can get into this program for like $80 a month. So it's not a financial issue at all. It really isn't. It's a belief issue. And it's like, you got to make that decision, right?
Yeah. I totally understand everything that you're saying. And it sounds like we did a lot of things too. We tested different price points and different things because we're like, okay, yeah, well, on the face of it, this is what people are telling us. But what we really know, and we talk a lot about this on the podcast, and for those of you who listen to this podcast a lot, you'll understand why. We talk about money mindset on this podcast constantly. And we talk about different pricing paradigms, right? How some people are investment minded, some people are expense minded, some people are what we call hybrid minded, and they're middle of the road. And if you are an expense minded person, meaning you believe that money is finite, that once you spend it, it's gone forever, never to return, there's not more money on the way, and you want to work with premium high-end clients, you are not speaking the same language. And in order for you to create and not undercharge and not overdeliver and create the safety for you to like have a client, you cannot be expense minded in your own business. You have to think completely differently about money at its core. Otherwise, when you do get a client, you'll lower your price because you feel like you're harming them by taking money from them or whatever. And it won't work. You will be afraid to market yourself because you will feel bad because you'll feel like you're taking money from people. So you have to completely change. You have to examine what you believe about money, question whether it's true or not, be willing to think something different. And only when you believe that you're not harming people by accepting money for services that make their life better and easier will you be successful. And so I spend on this podcast week after week after week working on that belief gap, because that's a whole nother layer of belief gap that's like different from like, well, can I get a client? It's like, here's all the mindset reasons why I'm even preventing myself from taking the first step to even getting a client. Because if my worldview tells me that I'm a horrible person if I do this, I'm never going to do it. And so I always talk about the Web Designer Academy as like a benevolent bait and switch, right? I'm going to enroll you in our program about like systems, processes, marketing, sales, pricing. But what we're really going to do is heal you at that core place so that you are a whole human who believes that you accepting money from a client creates more for both of you and not less for them and more for you. And when you believe that, you will put yourself in the room with people like Stephanie and take the steps and take the actions and grow your business and build an agency and give that opportunity for other people. But if you don't believe that, you're never going to make a move, no matter how many amazing deals she puts in front of you. So, yeah.
Yeah, I have about 132 things to say to that. So first of all, yes, like the second biggest thing we talk about is money in the coaching calls, the money mindset and all that sort of thing. And I'm a huge, like I'm on my own journey right now to get into these very high level money mindset stuff and I'm in a program and I've had a huge shift myself. And you really have to believe it's already happened before it even does. So that's a whole other podcast episode. But what I'll tell you about women and money is that women are generally in our society viewed as good people if they're nice, right?
Yeah.
When you think about a woman who has died, we talk about her and how nice she was. And so there is this ingrained culture for us that says, if I'm taking money from somebody, I'm not being nice. And now I'm like breaking down my value in society. What I'll tell you about pricing, and this is the thing that changes people's views a lot. Your pricing is there. Like people come up, they're like, oh, what's the formula for me to price my service? There's no formula for you to price your services, right? So your pricing is there. Like this is how we shift from thinking about pricing as representative of our value. Your pricing is a tool for you. It's there to teach. It's there to get the right people to do the right things and the wrong people to do nothing. It is there to represent your brand. So if you are a luxury brand, you want to be a luxury brand, high-end, design services, and yet you're pricing at something way down here. No, your ideal clients are not going to look at that and say, oh, that's a great deal. They're going to say, no, that's not for me. That's out of alignment with what I expect. So take this emotion out of pricing and look at it like a fact. It's just an attribute of the business that you do. And it has to align with what the people you want to sell to are expecting. And the funny thing is, I was at this event in December down in Florida, and this was all about the wealth and the money and money mindset and all this stuff, right? So I was in this room, in the right room, with these very, very 50 very successful business owners, people who are really doing well for themselves. And they had this mindset about money that I really needed to inherit, right? And so we were sitting doing this exercise where we were talking about selling our services. And it was theoretical, right? It was just a role-playing kind of thing. And so I was putting together this like package that I wanted to sell, and it was all fictional, and it was like about zookeeping or something like that, like not what I do. And so we went to present them to each other, and they're all like, yeah, this is $60,000 for 5 months of working with me. And this other person is like, yeah, this is going to be $100,000 program. I'm like, this is $5,000. I'm like, oh, here we are. Like, this is, this is the shift, right? This little Robin Hood mentality. Oh my God, it's going to be so valuable to these people. So this is the thinking that gets people stuck, is that they're like, oh, but if I offer a good deal, everyone's going to buy it. No, do not sell on price. Do not sell on price. If you are a brand that is very intentionally and distinctly structured around being low cost, it totally valid. Like that is like dollar stores, and that is your brand. That is part of your brand. And so your pricing is going to be part of your brand. But if you are not that, when you offer pricing that is out of alignment with what your ideal clients are thinking to spend, they actually won't spend it. I actually will not buy something if it is cheaper than what I expect it to be, because it says something about me. And it says something about the quality. Like that says to me, there's something wrong with this. I'm going to get in there, I'm going to pay for it, and then it's going to be like missing all sorts of things. So you got to get out of that mindset that your pricing is about your worth, because it's not. It's all part of the structure. It's all very unemotional, right? And yes, there are different types of buyers, but what I teach my clients is not to get stuck in this mindset that every client has to be closed. There are clients that I will meet with and I'll be like, oh, no, like, no, just no. And that's okay. There are plenty of other, like, release them, right? There are plenty of other clients that'll be out there, and you have to believe that. Otherwise, you are stuck. Like, you will be stuck forever.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. So I'm curious, like, what was the biggest shift for you in terms of your money mindset coming out of that event where people are like, yeah, $100,000 for this 6-month program or whatever? Like, what shifted for you walking away from that?
It's a bit creepy and a little interesting that as soon as I got attached to this program, I started, like, just everything that I thought of would just happen. But it was very much about getting out of this old crummy thinking that you shouldn't be. I grew up with, like, wealthy people are bad people, right? Or you shouldn't be asking for things, or you should be the Robin Hood. You should be the one that's pragmatic and blah, blah, blah. But I actually was down there presenting to that group. I was one of the sponsors of the event. And I got up in front of those folks who I considered to be like successful business owners and all like really, really smart people. And they were just like wrapped. And there was a lady who stood up at the end of my presentation and she said, I just want to tell everybody I had a conversation with Stephanie yesterday for half an hour. And she goes, I've spent 4 years trying to buy other people's programs and trying to buy these cookie cutter programs and frameworks, thinking that was all going to be like the answer for me. And she goes, what I should have done is just hired her. So like these people are recognizing my value and I'm sitting in front of them thinking, gosh, I have a lot of experience and a lot to offer. And I had to ask myself the question, why was I selling myself short? I'd just been in the wrong rooms, right? I had been immersed in other people who had that very like that scarcity mindset. And when you're part of that community, it feels wrong to leave that community, or it feels like you're going to lose your community if you start asking for more. But that was a huge wake up call to me, is like, I am completely abundant and I can have anything that I want. I really can. And if I start showing up like that, other people believe it. If I kept showing up as like the little sort of Robin Hood, I would lose all the people that I really wanted to work with. And I'm at the point in my career now and have so much experience that I should be serving those folks who are at that level because they actually need it, right? They don't have people around them that are like actually rooted in strong experience and perspective and all of that sort of thing that can give them that. And then I've got my other business over here where I get to also bring the people up who are just starting out. I just have to make sure that that's leveraged for me, right? Because I have to find both those places. But it was really about coming back to that sense of worth and that sense of value for yourself and recognizing the perspective that's out there.
So powerful. And I was listening to a podcast and I cannot remember who said this, but she was talking about a book that she had read about how we're all in line. We're all waiting in the line to go through the door, but there's always another door to go through. But we're afraid to leave the line. We're afraid to leave the line to go through the other door because we know eventually maybe we'll get through the door just by waiting over here. But you have to be bold enough to like leave the line and know that you will find your own way in. And I think that that's kind of what came up for me as you were sharing, that you're like, oh, I haven't put myself in this room yet.
That's right. Yeah. And part of putting yourself in another room is not just being around a different community, but it's also about putting yourself in another room in your own headspace. Like, what if I behaved like the person that I really want to be? What if I just started living and acting like I was already there? That's another, like, one of the big things that I've had to really work on is, I came back to my little town that I live in and everything's small here. The value here is about being an outdoor recreation enthusiast, right? And so nobody wants to dress up. Nobody wants to go out. It's a very weird little ecosystem here. And then you start to get back into that and you get back to your day-to-day grind and you start to like fall back into those old patterns. And so all of this stuff you have to consciously keep working on, and consciously, it's like going to the gym, right? So all these people everybody has mindset stuff, right? Everybody has these limiting beliefs, but it's what you do with them that matters. And we teach this a lot in our coaching sessions, but it's like, when I have that thought that I'm smaller than I am, I can't just sit there and say, oh, well, yeah, I guess that's true. I have to say, okay, hold on. What am I consciously doing about this? The goal is not to stop having the thought, because that's futile. And then you just end up getting even worse, right? The goal is to say, okay, great. I recognize where this is coming from and trying to keep myself safe, right? But I don't need that anymore. Like, I'm feeling pretty good about this. But you can come here and you can hang out here, but I'm going to be over here doing something. I'm going to be over here taking some action. And eventually, like, I always visualize it like this moody teenager that has come into the room and has been like, blah, 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 all this bad stuff. And so I just say, that's cool. I'm over here making cookies in the kitchen, but you stay in the living room. You hang out as long as you want. You're welcome to be here. But I don't have time to listen to all of this. And so do your thing and stay as long as you want. And eventually they just leave. And that's the exercise over and over and over again. You don't do it once and like miraculously you're cured. You do it over and over and over again. And you have your own personal board of directors. I say to my clients a lot, they're borrowing my confidence because they might be willing to go out and do something, but they're just like, I don't know if I can. And when I tell them, yes, you can. Of course you can. You're going to have to do it. You're going to have to step out. You can borrow my confidence in you until you have it yourself, right? The 3 pillars we tell all of our students is you have to commit, right? You have to decide that there's no 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Like you have to decide without being certain of the how. And, Tasha, who's runs the Money Mindset program, she says, look, there's these 3 pillars. There's like, what do you have? What do you believe, or who are you going to be? And then what are you going to do? Well, everybody focuses on the what are you going to do, but we stop thinking about who are we going to be and what do we want to have? And those 2 things are far more powerful in shifting you than in the, like, I don't need to know how it's going to happen. I just need to know that I'm going to get there. And I'm going to believe that. And I'm going to set all my sights on that. And so all the activities that I do, all of the actions that I take, all of the things I decide to do are in the service of that vision, as opposed to the focusing so heavily on the how, which is what everybody wants. And ironically, that's what I do. But, like I want everybody to be over here first. And so it's like get committed, right? Like be committed, stay committed, and decide that this is going to be your path. And you've got the help and you've got the support to get you there. The second thing is stay in consistent action, right? You can't just do one thing one time and then go, oh, well, this doesn't work, right? Like this is an exercise. Entrepreneurship is about constantly trying things, constantly being curious, and shifting that mindset from like judgment to curiosity. So everything that we do, even if it doesn't turn out the way that we want it to turn out, is good information. I don't even talk about failure. Like it's not failure. It's just, okay, I did something and I got some new good information. I remember launching my first group program and like nobody bought it. And I'm like, but I asked everybody. And then I just was like, okay, well, I'm going to launch it again in a couple of months and make some changes. And then I sold it out, right? Like, so it's just good information. And then the third thing that we say is stay supported. Whatever that means to you, whether that's you stay supported in our community, whether you stay supported, the worst thing for entrepreneurs is isolation, because they sit there in their little heads and they go, oh, well, I must be the only one having this problem, right? I'm trying to figure this out and I can't figure it out. I'm embarrassed. So many people come to coaching calls and they don't say anything. And I've started to say to them, I'm not going to ask you. I'm not going to call on you. Come and get what you came for. Every one of them has a question. And when I do call on them, they all were sitting there like ruminating on something. I'm like, go and get support. Why are you here? Like, I want to help you, right? So stay supported, whether that's your personal friends and family, whether that's peers, whether that's a community that you're part of, but stay supported, if only to not get into the rabbit hole of thinking you're the only one doing this.
Oh my gosh, this is so good. And I could talk to you for another hour, but unfortunately we are at time. Can you share with everybody where they can go to connect with you, the Fully Booked brand, all of the things?
For now, you can go to fullybookedva.com and find us all there, but we are actively in a rebrand and we will eventually be at fullybookedva.com will still work, but befullybookedva.com. And that is where we will eventually launch the new brand with all of the 3 channels and like this new energy. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Amazing. I'll link all of that up in the show notes. Stephanie, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. And yeah, we'll see everyone back here next week.
Thank you so much.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.